Key lime pie is one of America's most beloved desserts, but people can't agree on what the real version is. Was it born in the Florida Keys or in New York City? Should it be topped with meringue or whipped cream? And is it supposed to be yellow or bright green like so many tourist pies? Today I'll show you the many faces of key lime pie, from the classic 1930s recipe to the versions families still bake at home. And who knows, maybe one of them is just like the one your father or grandmother used to make. The classic Florida pie. If you ask a Floridian about the real key lime pie, many will picture the classic version, a smooth yellow filling in a flaky pastry crust, topped with a tall crown of meringue. This was the pie you'd see on Sunday dinner tables in the 1930s and 40s, baked in home kitchens or sold at small cafes along US Highway 1. The meringue wasn't just decoration, it was tradition. For thrifty bakers, it also used up the leftover egg whites after the yolks went into the custard. The contrast was beautiful. Pale golden crust, glossy yellow filling, and snowy white peaks, lightly browned in the oven. For some families, this was more than dessert. It was a ritual. Mothers and grandmothers beat the egg whites by hand, while children leaned over the mixing bowl, waiting for the moment the sugar transformed into stiff peaks. And when the pie came out of the oven, with the scent of caramelized meringue drifting through the kitchen, it felt like a celebration. Even today, Floridians will argue that this is the only authentic key lime pie. Everything else, graham cracker crusts, whipped cream toppings, neon coloring, is a modern compromise. For them, the classic pie is more than food. It's heritage. The public-style pie. But not everyone agrees. For countless Floridians, especially from the 1970s onward, the pie of memory isn't crowned with meringue at all. It's covered in whipped cream. Why? Because of Publix, the beloved supermarket chain found across Florida. Their bakery-made key lime pies became legendary. Light, creamy, topped with spirals of sweet whipped cream. They were an easy indulgence that families brought home for birthdays, holidays, or just an ordinary Saturday night. Ask around and you'll hear strong opinions. Meringue? That's sacrilege. Real key lime pie should always have whipped cream, just like Publix makes it. For many, this pie is the taste of Florida childhood. It's the dessert that appeared at potlucks, church suppers, and family reunions. Whipped cream added a different balance. Where meringue was airy and eggy, whipped cream was rich, cool, and slightly sweet, perfect against the tartness of the lime. And in the hot Florida sun, a chilled pie with whipped cream felt refreshing, even luxurious. This version shows how traditions evolve. What was once the authentic pie gave way to a new standard, shaped not by home kitchens, but by grocery store bakeries. And for an entire generation, Publix defines what key lime pie should be: the green tourist pie. Now let's leave authenticity behind for a moment and step into the 1960s. America was obsessed with convenience, color, and spectacle. And key lime pie, once pale yellow, suddenly turned bright green. Bakers added drops of food coloring or even packets of lime-flavored Jell-O to give the pie a neon glow. Why? Because tourists visiting Florida expected lime to mean green. A custardy yellow pie simply didn't look limey enough to them, so restaurants obliged. Locals rolled their eyes. To them, a green key lime pie was as fake as a souvenir t-shirt. But for visitors, these pies were magical. Imagine walking into a roadside diner on a family vacation. The pie case glows with slices of bright green custard, each one topped with whipped cream or a cherry. Children point and beg for a slice. Parents give in. And forever after, that neon green pie becomes the memory of a summer trip to Florida. For many Americans, especially those outside the state, The tourist pie was their first encounter with key lime pie. Some loved it, some hated it, but nobody forgot it. And even today, you can find bakeries selling green pies, not for tradition, but for nostalgia. The golden authentic pie. On the opposite end of the spectrum is the pie made with true, ripe key limes. These limes aren't bright green. When fully ripe, they're golden yellow, sometimes with a thin, pale skin. Their juice is fragrant, tangy, but softer and more floral than the Persian limes found in grocery stores. When you bake a pie with these limes, the filling isn't green at all. It's a rich custardy yellow. Some say this is the only real key lime pie because it uses the fruit as nature intended. Families who had a tree in their backyard often believed no store-bought pie could compare. Fathers or grandfathers would spend afternoons picking the tiny fruits, their hands scratched by the branch's sharp thorns. Children helped squeeze the juice, straining out dozens of seeds until they had enough for a pie. The result was always worth the effort. A pie that tasted of sunshine and sea breeze, tart but gentle, unmistakably Floridian. And for those lucky enough to grow up with a key lime tree outside, no other version, no whipped cream, no neon coloring, no bottled juice could ever replace it. 5. The family tradition. Not every key lime pie came from a bakery, a cookbook, or a radio recipe. For many families, it was simply something you made at home, your own way with whatever you had. Sometimes it was fathers or grandfathers who took charge, picking limes straight from a backyard tree. Their hands would be scratched by the sharp thorns, their shirts smelling of citrus oil by the end of the afternoon. Children might sit at the kitchen table with little wooden reamers, straining out dozens of tiny seeds from each lime. It took time, but nobody complained. The effort itself became part of the memory. Other times it was grandmothers who kept the tradition alive, following handwritten recipes passed down through the years. Some recipes called for pastry crust, others graham crackers. Some topped the pie with whipped cream, others with nothing at all. But every version carried the same spirit. This was a family pie, a dessert tied to Sunday dinners, holiday gatherings, and birthdays. For many people, the memory of key lime pie isn't tied to Florida or to restaurants or even to the Keys themselves. It's tied to a kitchen table, a parent, or a grandparent. It's tied to love. 6. The Cuban connection. Florida's food history is deeply connected to Cuba, and key lime pie is no exception. One story says that Cuban sponge divers, working off the coast of Key West, would prepare a simple dessert on their boats. They had stale bread, condensed milk, lime juice, and eggs. Mixed together, the lime juice would cook the custard in the sun, turning scraps into something sweet and satisfying. Whether this story is entirely true or not, the influence of Cuban cuisine in Florida is undeniable. Cubans have long used condensed milk as both a sweetener and a base for desserts. In Havana, bakeries you'll find cakes drenched in it, puddings thickened by it, and flans made richer with it. So it's no surprise that Floridians with Cuban neighbors, or Cuban ancestry, would take the same ingredients and bake them into a pie. Think of this variant less as a pie and more as a cousin, a bread pudding flavored with lime, made not for tourists but for sustenance. Sweetened condensed milk gave it richness, stale bread gave it structure, and the sun gave it texture. If you trace the flavors far enough back, key lime pie might owe as much to Havana as it does to Key West. 7. The New York style. Of course, there's still the persistent whisper from the north. Maybe key lime pie wasn't invented in Florida at all. Maybe it began in New York City with the Borden Company's Magic Lemon Pie. That recipe, printed in pamphlets and broadcast over the radio in the 1930s, called for condensed milk, lemon juice, egg yolks, and a graham cracker crust. Sound familiar? Change the lemons to limes and you have key lime pie. Was it coincidence or clever adaptation? No one can say for sure, but what's certain is that Borden's recipe shaped American kitchens. It introduced condensed milk as a dessert staple. It taught home bakers that pies could be quick, easy, and modern. And when Floridians began baking pies with their backyard limes, it's very possible that they were following a path first drawn in New York. So in this variant, key lime pie becomes less of a local specialty and more of a national creation, a marriage of corporate advertising and regional produce. It's not as romantic as the Aunt Sally story, but it's believable. And in its own way, it shows how American desserts evolve, not in isolation, but in conversation across states and cities. 8. Creative crusts. Not every key lime pie sits in the same shell. While pastry and graham cracker are the classics, inventive bakers have experimented with countless crusts over the years. Some use crushed pecans mixed with butter and sugar to add a nutty depth. Others press sweetened coconut into the pan, creating a chewy, tropical base that echoes the flavor of the filling. In the 1980s, Oreo cookie crusts became popular, the dark chocolate contrasting sharply with the bright lime custard. And in more recent years, gluten-free bakers have turned to almond flour or macaroon crusts, making the pie accessible to everyone. Each crust tells a different story. Pecan crusts often appear in Southern cookbooks where pecan pies reign supreme. Coconut crusts evoke islands and beaches, a reminder that key lime pie is a tropical dessert at heart. Oreo crusts reflect the playful, modern side of American baking. These creative bases prove that key lime pie is endlessly adaptable. 9. Frozen pie on a stick. Not all key lime pies are served on a plate. In Key West, a quirky twist became famous: frozen key lime pie on a stick. Here's how it works. Take a slice of pie, push a wooden stick through the bottom, freeze it solid, and then dip the whole thing in dark chocolate. The result? A handheld dessert that's cold, tangy, creamy, and sweet, with a crisp chocolate shell that cracks when you bite into it. On a hot summer afternoon, walking through the streets of Key West, nothing could feel more refreshing. Vendors sold them from carts, tourists lined up for a taste, and suddenly key lime pie had entered the world of novelty treats. For some people, their very first taste of the pie wasn't in a diner or a family kitchen. It was on a stick, melting slowly in the Florida heat. This version may not be traditional, but it captures something essential. Key lime pie isn't just a dessert, it's an experience. Though born in America, key lime pie didn't stay within its borders. Over time, it spread, and in some places it transformed. In Brazil, lime pies became so common that many people thought they were local creations. With a culture that embraced sweetened condensed milk in everything from brigadeiros to flan, the custard base felt natural. There, lime pie is everywhere, in bakeries, cafes, and home kitchens. Other countries added their own twists. In the Caribbean, you might find pies flavored with coconut milk. In Puerto Rico, bakers sometimes fold lime zest into the custard, giving it a pale green hue without food coloring. And in the UK, where lemon meringue pie has long been popular, key lime pie feels like a tropical cousin, brightening rainy afternoons with a taste of sunshine. Each international version shows how the pie's core idea, lime, condensed milk, and crust, translates across cultures. It's proof that key lime pie isn't just Floridian or American anymore. It belongs to the world. Of course, key lime pie isn't just about recipes. It's about the memories tied to them. For some, the pie will always taste like home. Fathers and grandfathers who pluck limes from backyard trees, turning the fruit into pies that linger in memory long after those loved ones are gone. A slice of pie becomes a slice of nostalgia, a way to honor the past. For others, the pie is linked to supermarkets. Publix bakery pies, boxed neatly with swirls of whipped cream, carried to family gatherings year after year. One glance at that familiar design can bring back decades of birthdays, graduations, and summer picnics. Everywhere it goes, the pie absorbs memories. What makes a pie real? So after all this, we have to ask, what makes a key lime pie real? Is it the meringue or the whipped cream, the yellow custard or the neon green, the pastry crust or the graham cracker? The truth is, there is no single answer. Key lime pie is not just one recipe. It's a collection of traditions, each tied to a place, a time, and a memory. For some, authenticity means a backyard tree in a family kitchen. For others, it's a supermarket bakery pie. For tourists in the 1960s, it was the glowing green slice in a roadside diner. For a child in Brazil, it might be the lime tart at a local cafe. What ties them all together is the feeling the pie brings: comfort, tartness, balanced with sweetness, a reminder of sunshine and warmth, and the joy of sharing something simple yet unforgettable. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.